AMPlify Podcast, what is up? First off, thank you for listening. This is the third episode in a row. Like I said, we're going to be consistent, new guest every week. This week, we got my guy, Kade Proctor, in this motherfucker. Dude, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. You got to be doing good.
I'm doing all right.
You're living on cloud nine, as your Instagram profile says. Or maybe it was just the day.
It was the day. I'm probably not on cloud nine now, but I'm feeling good.
What was the day?
It was this last Sunday, so it was July 14th.
I know you're a calm dude. Speak up just a little bit more for me. I know you're calm.
July 14th.
I'm gonna fix this for you. We need these people to hear this wisdom. I'm gonna fix that. You keep talking.
All right. It was July 14th of this last week, and I went and competed at USPA Drug Tested Nationals in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Cool. Shit. Sorry, guys. I need you guys to hear them. And sometimes these mics are a little bit janky. There we go. Is that better?
I'm a pretty soft-spoken guy, so sorry about that.
You are a soft-spoken guy. My damn. There we go. That looks a little bit better.
Thanks, Pace.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Cool. So, yes, you just did this powerlifting meet, dude. Like, I'm not an expert on the organizations. I do know this was a big one. Why was it a big one?
I think because usually the national meets come around like once a year. So after my first one in April, I knew that I wanted to do like a national meet just to kind of see like where I was on the spectrum of like where I can go, because this is my last year in juniors. So it's actually probably my last meet I'll be able to compete as a junior, which is 20 to 23 for my age.
This was your second meet, right?
Yeah, this is my second meet.
So a little background. I'm going to tell Kade's background because I know him. You know more about yourself than I know about you. But
True.
I met you in college. I met Kade in college. We both went to UCM. And when I met him, he was a bodybuilder. Stepped on stage. How many times have you stepped on stage as a bodybuilder?
I think 4. Yeah, 4.
Four times on stage. And just, it's crazy because seeing him in the weight room, he's so fucking strong. He's so fucking strong as a natural. I mean, his technique is flawless. Like, it's really incredible. So I think that everyone telling you, dude, just do a powerlifting meet, just do a powerlifting meet. You finally did it. You've only done 2 and been so successful. Like, what was really the turning point when you were like, all right, I'm going to do a powerlifting meet?
So yeah, my friends, Jagger, my coach, Jagger Lowe, he's been asking me, begging me basically to do a powerlifting meet, probably since I was around 20. I didn't know that I would be in a junior category at the time, but and then my other friend Logan Bratton, who also went to school with us, and and then another friend of mine, Chris Oden, they all asked me to do a powerlifting meet. They're like, dude, you should do one, you do really well. But like at the time, like I was just kind of concerned with like doing well in bodybuilding, so I knew I was strong, but I wanted to like stay in more of like the physique avenue. I didn't really want to branch out and do like a powerlifting meet or like a strength sport yet. Mm-hmm. But I knew that I would at some point. So finally, Jagger's like, hey, there's a meet coming up in April, and we could start now, and I'll do your prep for you and everything if you'll do it. And I was like, sure, fuck it, I'll do it. Yeah. And so we kind of went from there and prepped for that meet. I think from December is when I got with him, because Noah Arney, he motivated me after that meet to kind of do one, just because like I went to that meet and saw people putting up some crazy numbers, and it kind of just got me motivated to do it. So after that, I contacted Jagger and was like, hey, I'll do it. And so we kind of set up a plan and then competed that April.
What were your numbers that first meet and body weight? Would you compete at?
Okay, so I weighed in at that meet at 241.2 and competed in the 242 class, both open and juniors. And then my numbers for that meet, I squatted 556, I benched 396, and deadlifted 661.
Damn.
So I had a 16-14 total.
That was April. That was this April.
Yeah, that was this last April. It was April 27th, I believe. Okay,
so then you came around and you just got finished with the, what would you say, the qualifier, like the
So this was just like USPA Drug Tested Nationals, so it was like a national meet, or a national event
in Vegas.
Yeah.
And what were your numbers there?
So in Vegas, I ended up squatting 622 pounds. I benched 413, and then I deadlifted 711.
How the fuck do you do that? I mean, honestly, like, tell me, like, so, all right, someone comes up to you, is like, dude, I want those numbers. What are you gonna say?
I would say that bodybuilding actually played a huge role in how well I can do at this sport, just because, like, with scientific training, like, in order to be strong, like, you have to have the muscle mass there for you to move that weight first. So I think I spent like a good amount of my time like building up my base, building up my muscle, and then like once I started working with Jagger, then I started making them a lot stronger than they were before. And I had the muscle there, but I just had to train in like strength numbers so that I could perform like at an elite level.
Okay, so what do you think about this? Like, there's a lot of people who don't have a lot of muscle mass who are really strong. What do you do with them? Because, for example, I always bring up Max Tuning, right? He's decently strong for how little muscle mass he has.
He is.
And I love Max Tuning. Love the man.
It's funny as hell.
But do you think that's why his increments are so small? Because he doesn't spend time in a surplus gaining lean muscle mass through hypertrophy training?
Yeah, so like I love Max Tuning too. Like I watch his videos a lot. He's hilarious. I love his content. But I think that Max would benefit a lot if he took more time, wouldn't do summer shredding with like Christian and them, just because like that takes a lot of your muscle away just anytime you're in a caloric deficit, like at all. So I would say if he focused on, getting his numbers up high, like really pushing his food, like I'm not saying he doesn't have to track, but like he's an individual that has a hard time gaining. So I would say if he really focused on his strength, getting bigger over like an extended period of time, since he's a hard gainer, I'd say like a year and a half, his numbers will blow up.
Okay. Yeah, I agree completely. So now that you won your weight class,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like what were the accolades that you got from that meet? You won?
So I got first in 242 junior, which like I said is 110 kg weight class. So I won. I'm national champ at that. And then my squat, I also set state records, which they were all state records, but like I knew that I would probably have state records going in, but I really wanted national and world records because I looked at them prior to going into the meet. And with powerlifting, you actually have to tell them that it's going to be a national record or a state record or a world record, because if you don't tell them, then they aren't going to record it and it's not going to be a record. So each time you go up, each attempt,
you have to do research.
Yeah, you have to make sure that it's going to be a record, and then you have to tell like the handler or the judge when you come off, like this next one is going to be a state record, and then they record it.
Did not know that.
Yeah, and so I got a state record on squat, which was 622. I was 6 pounds off of the world record squat for my age, which was 628, I believe. And then for bench, I got a world record on my second attempt at 407, and then I just added a little bit more weight on the third for 413 for my third attempt, and that was a world record.
These aren't your Brad Castleberry world records. These are legit fucking world records.
No, these are real KGs, Brad. But for deadlifts, I ended up getting a national and world record a world record for my second attempt. So my first attempt was 639, just an easy opener. And then second attempt, I knew that the world record was 683. So I told the lady when I came off, you have to tell them your next attempt. I told her, I was like, whatever 688 is in kgs, that's what I want. So she's like, all right. And I told her it was a world record, and so they marked it down and everything. Came out, second attempt, that was pretty easy too. But then I came off, and the third attempt, I didn't know that I had to have Jagger had texted me in between the second and the third attempt, and he was like, hey man, we need 711, because 711 will give you an international elite total, which I think for 242 is it's either 731 or 740, but I ended up with a 747 total. So I got international elite, which is the best total you can have in powerlifting. But he's like, we need 711. And I was like, what? Why? Like, I thought, because going in, I thought I was going to deadlift 705. Like, I thought that would be good because, like, I hadn't never pulled 705 other than off of 3-inch blocks, which isn't like a complete pull. But, so he's like, yeah, you need 711. I'm like, okay. So we went out there, we pulled it, and then it was good.
What lift felt the best that day?
I definitely got the most hype on deadlift just because, like, doing a 700 deadlift has been a goal for, like,
dude, that's
quite
like
some time.
Huge milestone.
It's been a goal for quite some time. So, like, actually being able to, you know, go out and perform it at a meet and it being successful, getting all white lights, I was pumped, man. Like, I couldn't contain it.
What'd you do with your body weight? So, because I know you water cut down. Explain that process to us.
Okay, so with my weight, I was going to just go ahead and diet, like, really slowly down to 242 and kind of hover around 244 and then, like, maybe do, like, a one-day water cut. But I told Jagger, like, I think it was 8 or 9 days out, I was like, yo, dude, I'm going to have to do, like, a pretty hard water cut just because I weigh, like, 253 right now. And he was like, no worries, man. Like, he's like, that'll be easy. And so that Monday, I stepped on the scale, weighed 253, and he just had me do 3 gallons of water that day, kept my sodium really high. I think I did 100 grams carbohydrate and then fill the rest in, you know, with protein, hitting my body weight in protein. Same thing for the next day. And I raised my fats too because my carbs were going so low. The next day, on Tuesday, I went 100 carbs again. Same thing, filled it in with protein, you know, 1 gram per pound of body weight on that. And then also kept my sodium really high that day, also 3 gallons of water. Wednesday, went to 0 carbs, ate basically just protein and vegetables and fat, and 2 gallons of water that day. Thursday, 0 carbs again, 1.5 gallons distilled water that day.
Why? Why distilled water?
Honestly, I don't really know. I just know that that's what he told me to drink, so I did it. But
interesting.
I think it has to do with, like, the minerals that are in water. So, like, he didn't want me to have any kind of sodium for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because we loaded sodium, and then we were going to try to flush out the carbohydrates in the muscle, like, with that water cut, because after you go 0 carbs, like, your body's going to start secreting, like, through your muscles, like in your glycogen stores, like trying to get rid of that. Mm-hmm. And so I went 1.5 distilled that day, 0 carbs. And then the next day I went 0 carbs again. So Friday,
3 days in a row, 0 carb.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was rough. It was really rough, just because, not because of the 0 carbs, but just because doing it so drastically. So I was probably eating close to 4,000 calories a day, and then I cut back, like, pretty drastic. I would say it was anywhere from 2,000 to 1,800 calories for a couple days, which isn't bad for some, but, like, for me that really hurts.
Yeah.
And Friday, I woke up in the morning and Jagger was like, all right, you're gonna have 3 eggs for breakfast, no salt, nothing, and then we're just gonna see how your weight goes throughout the day. So, like, I just had 3 eggs for breakfast. It was like 5 a.m. I had to go catch my flight. I got on it at like 7, and I was hurting the whole time. So I finished a half gallon distilled water by 8 a.m. that morning, and then I didn't get water the rest of the day. Didn't have any other food the rest of the day. I was on the flight, like, they were bringing by drinks and, like, peanuts and snacks and stuff, and I was just like, no, I can't have that.
Yeah.
And so we got there, and I think whenever I weighed in that day, I was like 242.5 whenever I weighed in at the hotel on the scale. And I was like, cool, I made it. Like, I was excited just because, like, I didn't want to get down there.
It was all worth it at that point.
Yeah, at that point, like, the burning in my stomach was worth it. But, like, that night, I ended up weighing even lighter than that, like 241, maybe even like 240.9 at the end of the night. And I texted Jagger and was like, hey, do you think I could have, like, some casein pudding? Because, like, I'm really hurting right now. And he goes, yeah, dude, just eat the casein, and then you can have some water too if you're really dying. So I had, like, a half a bottle of water, and I had casein pudding, and then I went to bed. And I woke up the next day at like 2:39.
Oh, damn. So then you go weigh in, because that's just for when you weigh in, right? Mm-hmm. What do you eat after you weigh in?
So Jagger was really telling me to push like the meals of the food. So like what I mean by that is not a bunch of food at once, but have like 4 to 5 to 6 like meals throughout the day, so that I can like keep having food, like other than eating a bunch of food at once, getting full, and then not being able to eat till like really late at night. He was just making sure that I was getting my water back in. So I had like 2 to 2.5 gallons that next day. And also I had a Pedialyte, I believe, 2 Pedialyte, try to get those electrolytes back up. And I went to the buffet right after weigh-ins, but honestly I had like a plate of food and my stomach was hurting. Like I was completely full. And so I kind of just chilled out, left there. About 2 to 3 hours later, I had a big plate of like nachos, like shredded chicken and cheese nachos. They're really good. It's called Nacho Daddies in Vegas. But I had that, and then I went to Heart Attack Grill and I had a burger and fries.
Heart Attack Grill.
It was
that sounds
cool.
Amazing.
You like dress up. You go in there and they dress you up in this hospital gown, and if you don't finish your burger, like they're nurses, basically. Your waitresses are nurses. They're like in old,
that's hilarious.
Old-fashioned like pin-up costumes. And if you don't finish your burger, then they take this big wooden paddle and they put you out in front of everyone, and you like hold on to these railings and they spank you. Like,
no way.
I'm not talking like they spank you light, like oh haha, you're getting a spanking. Like they rear back and they hit you like 4 to 5 times hard. Like,
did you get spanked?
No, I finished my
burger. I
burger.
could see Kade saying, "Call me daddy." Just make him spank you hard.
No, like I was like, I am finishing my burger because I don't want to be embarrassed like that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So, I mean, that sounds like the recipe for success, obviously, based off your numbers, and sounds like it went well. Was there any difference with like each meet's prep? And like, if so, just tell us about the prep. Like, what was the thing that went most smooth in your prep? What is something you wish you could have gone back and fixed, if anything?
So my first prep, like it was completely new to me. Like I was used to working with higher volume, hypertrophy numbers. And so like I still worked with hypertrophy in the beginning of my first prep. It was like 8 to 10 reps, sometimes 12s on some things, accessories, biceps, delts, that sort of thing. But it was really fun to me just because like I hadn't worked in like 1 to 5 rep range, so I hadn't seen how like what the intensity on the bar would be or how heavy I could actually lift until I started working or like training for powerlifting. So that part was exciting for me. As far as things I would change, like honestly, like shout out to Jagger on this one, just because like I don't know much about the programming for powerlifting. Like I said, I've worked more with hypertrophy stuff, but he did a really good job with working with me, answering any kind of questions I had. I really, if I could go back and change something, I wouldn't change anything, just because like I had great success in like a very short amount of time, and I think I'll just keep progressing if I stick to the plan and just do what he tells me.
That's dope, dude. So what's the next plans?
Right now I'm going to take a little bit of a break off, and I talked to a guy there that said he could probably get me a sponsorship for Worlds, which is coming up in October, and that will be like the best guys in my weight class in the world like competing. So
there's more Kades out there. It's scary.
No, but for real, that would be a tough meet. I don't expect to do really well there, just because like it's everybody in the world. But he said he could maybe get me a sponsorship, and I'm going to talk to him about that. So if I end up getting on the world team, then I would be able to go to Ireland, I think it is where Worlds is for the USPA, and I would compete there. And I think if I'm on the world team, then like all the expenses, like with travels and stuff, like that's on them.
That's
so like
sick, dude.
I wouldn't have to pay very much. Like
go to Ireland, drink a warm Guinness.
A warm Guinness,
dude. No, they drink their beer at room temperature there.
Ooh,
you know that?
I love.
You know that?
I love Guinness, but I don't know if I'd want to drink it warm.
Yeah, they drink it warm there.
I believe
room temperature. Yeah.
I believe you. I'll have to kiss the Blarney Stone, right?
What's that?
In Ireland?
I feel like I should know that.
It's like,
What the fuck is that?
you have to look it up. It's like this big stone. It's around these like medieval looking castles, and like people bend over the back. So there's like a little bridge, like a stone bridge, and you like bend over the back this stone like.
Please look this picture up. What's it called?
This big stone wall. The
Google
Blarney
image.
Stone.
The Barney Stone? Like
Blarney.
Blarney.
The Blarney Stone. And then they bend back over and like kiss it, and it's just like a thing people do when they go to Ireland.
Dude, I want to slap my tongue all over that.
But that's like my next goal. So really, I'll probably end up taking some time off. I want to get my weight down just a little bit because I don't really like chilling at like 250. But I'll probably get my weight down to around 240 for a while and train there, just so I can, not have to do a water cut again.
Yeah.
It wasn't crazy. Like, it's not a crazy water cut. I've heard of guys doing like 20, 25 pounds in like a week, but it wasn't fun. So I think I'd probably just rather stay at my own body weight.
Yeah.
Train at that and then see what happens. I don't know.
Dude, so like at what point do you think someone is ready to do a powerlifting meet?
I think anytime.
Okay, so I want to bring up this conversation because a lot of our friends, the juice dogs back home, which does not imply they're using juice. That's just the fucking name we use.
No juice.
No juice, but dogs that are juicy. Like, they were talking about bodybuilding and how, like, it's almost, which I actually disagree with, but it seems like it's, like, disrespected if someone who's not conditioned or just does bodybuilding for fun and steps on stage.
I feel like that's different.
Okay, so explain that. I want to hear it.
So I feel like for powerlifting, since there's so many categories, like, there's categories for teens, there's categories for masters, for people who are 60 plus, 70 plus, even like you can be 99 years old I think and still compete in powerlifting. But for bodybuilding, I think you should take the time and develop. I think you should take the time and develop for powerlifting too. But like if a kid wants to go and do it just like so he can cross it off his bucket list, like no one's gonna like make fun of you or say, hey, you probably shouldn't have done a powerlifting meet because you weren't ready. But like for bodybuilding, like if you aren't in like a specific condition, like they're probably gonna laugh, maybe not directly at you or say anything, but like
it's just kind of an elephant in the room.
It's just like why not work your hardest to do your best at something like that rather than just going up to say you did it. I feel the same with powerlifting as well, but at the same time, powerlifting is just like getting your feet wet, seeing how it all works, like knowing you have different attempts, not going too heavy on your first attempts or your second attempts. It's really just, there's a learning curve to everything, just like anything that you do. But with powerlifting, I think to see how a meet's ran, I would suggest like going to a couple meets first and like seeing how it all works, and then like deciding, like this is something I could do or this is something I want to do, and then like hire a coach to help you, and then you'll be good. Then you just progress from there.
You think you'll ever try to coach powerlifters?
I would like to. I would like to a lot. I've learned quite a few things that have yielded success just in a couple of months. From my first meet in April, like I put 132 pounds on my total in like 10 weeks. So
that's crazy.
So
that sounds pretty substantial to me.
And I think a lot of that was just knowing like what I'm capable of, or like having a number in my head and like talking to Jagger and being like, hey, I want to hit this, and he's like, no, that's probably a little too heavy, and then like me being like, hey, or not even telling him, hey, I'm gonna go heavier than this, but just saying fuck it and being like, I know what I'm capable of, like I'm gonna pick this weight. And so that happened a couple of times, but like he's been really, really close, and that's something that's hard because you don't, like you as another person don't know like how much you can bench like on any given certain day, and if you're super recovered you might bench 10, 15 pounds more than what I would think you would.
Yeah.
So that's, coaching powerlifting is hard. Like it's not something that should be taken lightly.
Yeah. So overall, to me, I've never stepped on stage. I've never competed in a powerlifting meet. I would like to. It's on my bucket list within the next decade, I would say. What is more fulfilling?
Well, for me, like powerlifting is way more fulfilling for me personally, just because like you work really hard in both, but with bodybuilding, it's completely different. Like, you have to track your food all the time. You have to make sure that everything is measured like perfectly. But with powerlifting, it's more like fun to just go out there and be like, hey, like, I'm gonna lift this much weight on that certain day. You get ready for it, and like, there's not a lot of letdown per se. Like, whenever you get up on stage that day, like, this person might have looked a little bit better than you, but it's not, is it objective? Because I lift a certain amount of weight and the other guy doesn't.
Like, it's subjective versus metrics.
Yes.
Like, it's a game of metrics for powerlifting.
So like for bodybuilding, like, the judges are who decides who's going to win. With powerlifting, if you lift more than the other guy and you have all white lights, you're going to win. Because if you're stronger than him, you show them that you're stronger than him in those lifts. It's up to you. Like, it's not left up to the judges. Like, it's all on you. And if you can perform on that day, then you'll walk away victorious. I mean, that's cool about it.
That's kind of my view on it, and I'm excited to dabble in both. But if someone came up to you and they said, Kade Proctor, you are unique and good, what would you say to them? What would that mean to you?
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully they give me their number, because it's probably the girl at the sub shop.
Oh my gosh.
Where we go? Longboards.
Longboards, yeah.
Hopefully it was her, because she's bad. But
that's so funny.
If they came up to me and said that, I would probably have the same reaction she did.
Yeah.
And be like, what do you mean?
You are unique and good.
Pace said that to her. He was like, has anyone ever told you you're very unique and good? And she goes, is that a good thing? And I like looked at her, I'm like, yeah, it's a good thing.
I was confused. We first said we were at the table, and I don't even know how we brought it up. We were like, you know what, Kade, you're unique and good. And we just started dissecting it. Like, what does that really mean? But what does this really mean to you? Go beast or get yeast. What does that mean to you? I love hearing people's answers about this, because
Go beast or
because like yeast. I want it to be a uniform. Like, I want everyone to know exactly what the fuck it means. But what does that mean to you? Someone comes up to you and they're saying, go beast or get yeast. Like, dissect that for me.
Well, to me, I would say you're either going to go beast mode and show everyone who the fuck you are, or you're going to be like, get yeast. I would say just like get yeeted, or like get the fuck out of here, because you obviously. Like,
no one wants yeast. Tell me one person on this planet that wants yeast.
Yeast? Nah.
So if you're having,
I've heard yeast infections aren't good. Girls.
I've heard it too. I've never had one, I don't think, but I've heard that too. So like, I always say, like, all right, you're being a bitch in the mind. Like, you don't want to get up one day. You're tired. Like, you don't want to go beast on the last 10 seconds of a HIIT cardio session. You don't want to do that last set, that last rep. Well, if someone held a gun up to your head and said, go beast, or you're going to get fucking yeast, you'd probably go beast.
Yeah. It's go beast or die at that point, I'd say.
Oh my
held a gun to your head.
So what are you training today? We're actually about to go train. We're only going to do like a 30-minute podcast. We're definitely going to have them on. I didn't realize you're in Lee Summit, so you can drive out here in 10 minutes. And
10 minutes away.
Do more podcasts, but I know we're on different splits. What are you training today? You said you're more hypertrophy training?
Yeah, so I'll probably get, what is today?
Wednesday.
I don't know. I'll probably either do a push or a pull day. I don't really want to train legs right now. They still kind of hurt. But I'll probably end up doing like a push day.
Yeah. Kind of intuitive training, just kind of like.
Yeah, be like 7 to 8 reps on most things probably.
Cool. So you generally happy right now? Are you a happy guy?
I'm happy.
That's good, man.
I've been eating food. That's fun.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to train, so
yeah.
I'm pretty happy.
How should they be happy? Anyone watching, like, how should they be happy? How do you get happy?
I would say just push yourself, like pick a goal that you have in mind, or maybe something you've always wanted to do, and just kind of like write it down so that you know exactly what you're trying to achieve, and then set out and do it, and you'll feel a lot better.
You know, it's funny, a lot of people too, they're like, oh, I'm not driven by goals or accomplishment. I feel like a lot of people who say that just may have never accomplished something they've set for themselves. Like, a lot of goals people set is necessarily something that they aren't hungry for right off the bat, but dude, it's just that hook you get from accomplishing something.
Yeah,
boost your confidence.
It could
and
be just like a small goal at first, like say, oh, I want to take like 225 and like bench it 5 times. Like, you may have only been able to do 3 times before, but you know, you slowly work on it each week, and say the next week you get 4, and the next week you get 4 again, and it's just right there that when that week you get 5, dude, you feel like so fulfilled just because you're like, oh, like
yeah, these goals got to be sustained.
I wanted that
smart
goal.
Goals.
Yeah, I wanted that goal, and I achieved it. So I think that's something you should do.
All right, ending up with this, we're kind of all over the place at the end, but I want to end with this. Give me your top 3 tips. Number 1 for deadlift.
For deadlift. So I would say my top 3 tips for deadlift.
Top tip. I'm gonna give you 3 different ones. I just want your number 1 piece of advice for deadlift.
Okay. So for deadlift, I would say use your legs. That's a pretty good tip, just because a lot of people I see, and it's different because everyone has different leverages. A lot of people I see will rip it off the ground, and then it's all back. Whenever I load up the bar, you might not see it per se, because like I rip it off the floor too, but I definitely get like all the slack out of the bar before I actually start pulling up, and that creates kind of like a spring for my legs to like be engaged. And if you look at some of my deadlifts, you'll see that my legs are not completely straight as I'm pulling, just because they haven't quite got to lockout yet. But like I use my legs a lot on deadlifts.
I can tell.
Ooh. But other than that, I would say work on your bent over rows a lot. If you can get a really good bent over row, like heavy compound rows, that's going to help and have a lot of carryover to your the weight you use on deadlifts.
Cool.
I got it.
Yep, let's hear it.
What's it like to have a world record? Like to say, like in that specific category, you are
world.
You hold that. Like,
it's kind of crazy. World record. It's not just.
Honestly, like it probably hasn't sank in yet, just because like those were numbers that I wanted to hit before I went to the meet, and I didn't really know that it would be a world record until I looked it up like a couple days before, and then I was like, oh, like I can do that for sure. Like that was like another motivating factor to like make me do it. And so to say that I have a world record, it doesn't really mean like. It means a lot to me, obviously, but like it hasn't registered with me yet. So having a couple different world records and a national record, it just feels like a normal day, honestly.
Lastly, how do you choose a good coach for a powerlifting meet? If this is your first time hiring a coach,
I would say, well, for me, like I picked one of my close friends that I knew was good at powerlifting, and he had been doing it for years. But I would say if you're an individual that like knows absolutely nothing about powerlifting, nothing about weightlifting, like I said, I would go to like a couple meets. I would find guys that are either really good at competing or they have an athlete that's really successful, and I would talk to them and I would get their contact information, and I would say, hey, like I'm really looking to get into powerlifting. Like, do you think you could coach me, or do you think you could point me to someone who's like a really good coach? And I think just by doing that, even like a couple different times if you have to, you'll get a coach that will put you on the right path to success for sure.
Dope, man. Well, brother, it's been real, but this is only podcast number 1 of many with this guy. So go follow him, plug all your stuff. What's your Instagram?
Kaderade 200.
Kaderade 200.
So it's just KADER and then ADE 200.
I see what you did there. It's not Kaderade 0 anymore though, because you're a powerlifter. You want those carbs. You not see my story? I drink power. Where is it? Where the fuck is it? I drink Gatorade Zero for the first time today. I didn't even know they had it.
My handle's always been Kaderade 200, but I am looking for a new one. So if you guys have suggestions, throw that in there as well.
Drop it. I love it. All right, bro. Well, thank you for watching. Subscribe to this podcast. Go follow this dude. Go check out the lifts. He posted all on Instagram. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.